She needed a date for Christmas, so her billionaire boss said, "Pretend it's me." Lydia just wanted to survive Christmas. No pity, no awkward questions, and definitely no ex showing up with his perfect new girlfriend. But when one little lie she told to protect herself threatens to unravel everything, the last man she ever expected offers to help. Her boss, cold, untouchable, and about to change everything. Before we continue, if you enjoy touching and inspiring stories like this one, make sure to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Now let's get back to the story. Oh, wow, he's actually bringing her? Lydia didn't mean to say it out loud, but the words slipped out, soft, stunned, and raw, right in the middle of the open-plan office. Heads didn't exactly turn, but one did, his. Ethan Ashford looked up from across the floor, the CEO himself, sharp-suited, ice-eyed, the kind of man who never acknowledged small talk, let alone emotional outbursts. Lydia froze, her cheeks flushed, not from the cold draft sneaking through the windows, but from the deep wave of embarrassment rising up her neck. She turned back to her desk, pretending to type, pretending to breathe, pretending to be invisible. But her heart was thudding in her ears. She knew what had triggered it. The message, the one blinking on her phone just moments ago. "Hey, Lyd, just wanted to let you know, I'm bringing someone to the family dinner. Hope that's okay." Hope that's okay? Jason, her ex-fiancé actually, who'd ghosted her 3 weeks before the wedding 2 years ago, and now was RSVPing to her family's Christmas Eve dinner with a new girlfriend, like it was the most casual thing in the world. Like her heart hadn't shattered in that very dining room. And the worst part? She'd told her mother she was bringing someone too, just to save face, just to keep Aunt Carolyn from doing that voice again. "Oh, sweetie, still single? But you're such a pretty girl." Lydia blinked back the sting in her eyes and turned her attention to her screen. But the words were a blur. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, useless. And then, "Are you all right?" The voice was quiet, deep, polished, right behind her. She looked up slowly. Ethan Ashford stood there, tall and unreadable. Every button of his charcoal gray coat fastened, steel watch catching the glow of the afternoon light. Not a hair out of place. He didn't usually come to this side of the floor. He didn't usually speak to anyone unless it was business. Lydia straightened in her chair. Yes, sorry, I didn't mean to disturb anything," she said, her voice softer than she meant. "It was a personal message." He nodded slowly, as if filing the information away like a mental spreadsheet. But then, to her surprise, he didn't leave. Instead, he glanced down at her desk, at the little snow globe, a tiny silver house inside, surrounded by painted pine trees. It sat quietly beside her laptop, her favorite item always off to the side. "Is that a snow globe?" he asked. She blinked. "Yes. My grandmother gave it to me." He didn't smile exactly, but something softened around his eyes, a rare moment of warmth flickering in the distance. Then, "If you need someone, then pretend it's me." The words landed like thunder in her chest. She stared at him. "What? You said you're expected to bring someone. I assume your ex is trying to make some kind of statement, so make one back." Lydia gave a nervous laugh. "You're joking." "I'm not." "Mr. Ashford, I couldn't possibly—" "You're a valued employee. If you need help managing a social situation, I'm willing to step in, but it has to look real." She opened her mouth, closed it, opened again. He had already turned slightly, ready to walk away. "Wait." Her voice stopped him. "Why would you do that? I mean, what would you get out of pretending to be my date?" He looked at her then, fully. Something unreadable passed through his eyes. A pause stretched between them like a pulled string. "Let's just say, I'm not particularly fond of men who humiliate women in public." The words were so calm, so quiet. And yet they carried a kind of weight she couldn't place. Lydia swallowed. "But everyone will see. I'll make it clear that it's by choice. If you want me there, I'll be there. If not, we never speak of it again." He turned to leave, then paused. "Think about it, but decide soon." And just like that, he was gone, leaving Lydia staring after him, heart pounding, her world tilted at a strange new angle. The next day, everything was back to normal, or pretending to be. People bustled in the office with paper cups of holiday coffee, tinsel sprouting like weeds from every desk divider. Lydia tried to keep her head down, but her mind wasn't cooperating. The snow globe glinted on her desk, a small reminder of warmth, of family, of how badly she didn't want to face Christmas alone. At lunch, she ducked out to the cafe downstairs. The place was half full, the usual clink of cutlery and murmurs of conversation filling the air. She ordered soup, sat by the window, stared into it like it might show her an answer. And then, without a sound, he sat across from her. Ethan, no entourage, no assistant, just him. She blinked. "Did I forget a meeting?" "No." "Then why are you didn't answer me." She hesitated. "You were serious?" "I don't say things I don't mean." A beat passed. "You'd really come to my family dinner?" she asked. "Eat pie with my aunt who grills people about their 5-year plans?" "I'm excellent at small talk," he said deadpan. She raised an eyebrow. "You don't even do small talk?" "Then I suppose it'll be a Christmas miracle." And that made her laugh, quiet, surprised, like she hadn't expected him to be even a little bit funny. It slipped out before she could catch it, and for the first time in months, she didn't feel like crying when she thought about Christmas. She looked at him, really looked. Sharp suit, impossibly calm, and yet he'd shown up. For her. Lydia swallowed hard. "Okay." His eyes flicked up, waiting. "I'll take you up on the offer," she said. "But just for one night." He nodded once. "Then it's a deal." She couldn't believe this was happening, couldn't believe she was really going to bring her CEO as her date. And as she picked up her spoon, still stunned, still half numb, she whispered more to herself than to him, "This better not blow up in my face?" Ethan stirred his coffee, and without looking up, he said, "Then don't let it." The office buzzed louder than usual the next morning, not because anything had changed, but because everything had. Lydia wasn't the type people gossiped about. She kept to herself. She worked hard, smiled when spoken to, but never stepped out of line. Never gave anyone a reason to look twice, until now. It started small, a glance here, a lifted eyebrow there. Then the whispers. Was that really Ethan Ashford with her at lunch yesterday? They were laughing. I swear she laughed at something he said. Maybe she's related to someone on the board. Lydia kept her head down and her fingers moving on the keyboard. But her heart hadn't slowed since yesterday. She had said yes. She had agreed to this, to pretending Ethan Ashford, CEO of Ashford & Hart, the man with more titles than smiles, was her boyfriend. For Christmas dinner. What was she thinking? Her screen blurred again, and she blinked back the thoughts. Her snow globe caught the morning light beside her laptop. The tiny silver house shimmered inside, surrounded by glittering snowflakes that never touched the ground. Just like her, floating, in between. A message popped up on her screen. From Ethan Ashford. Subject, "The rules meet me, conference room 6. 10:15 sharp. She checked the clock. 10:12. Her stomach flipped. He was already there when she walked in. Coat off, sleeves rolled, a single paper cup of coffee on the table. He gestured to the seat across from him. "I took the liberty of ordering yours. Almond milk, no sugar, cinnamon sprinkle." She froze. "How do you know my coffee order?" "I run a company. I know everyone's coffee order." That wasn't remotely reassuring. But the warmth in the cup was. She sat, carefully. Ethan leaned forward, interlacing his fingers, like this was a quarterly review. "We need ground rules," he said. "Ground rules?" she echoed. "Yes, if we're doing this, it needs to look real. We'll need a backstory, dates, details. We can't have your cousin asking me what my favorite Christmas movie is, and me saying, "Die Hard." She blinked. "Is that your favorite?" "No, that would be The Godfather, but that's not the point." She gave him a long look. "You're really taking this seriously?" He met her gaze. "Because if I show up at your family's home, pretend to be your partner, and it looks fake, it reflects badly on you. I won't allow that." Something about the way he said it, calm, firm, like it was simply non-negotiable, made her chest tighten. "Thank you," she said softly. He gave a short nod. "First rule, we met 3 months ago, through mutual friends, kept it quiet. You were nervous about dating after what happened with your ex." "That's not far from the truth." "Good. Second rule, you like to bake. I like to eat what you bake." She raised a brow. "Are you planning to request a cookie demonstration?" "My mother used to say the way to win a holiday table was through the dessert tray." "Your mother?" He paused, then offered the smallest nod. "She passed, long time ago." Something softened between them. Lydia sipped her coffee. "Sorry, that must have been hard." "It was," he said. Simply. They let the quiet settle. He was the first to break it. "Third rule, physical contact." She nearly choked on her drink. "Excuse me?" "If someone hugs you, I'll need to look like I belong. Hold your hand. Put a hand on your back. It has to be natural." Lydia flushed, not because it was inappropriate. Because it was too appropriate, too thought out, too considerate, too much for someone who wasn't supposed to care. And yet here he was, preparing to protect her reputation in front of her entire extended family, with coordinated hand placement. "This is the most romantic fake thing I've ever done," she muttered. His mouth twitched, a ghost of a smile. "You haven't even heard the fourth rule." "Oh no, there's more." "One more." He leaned back. "If it ever becomes too much, the pretending, the closeness, the pressure, you say one word and we walk. No questions, no damage. You lead, I follow." Lydia looked at him. The most powerful man in the building, offering her the power, the exit, just like that. "What's the word?" he considered. "Something festive? Eggnog?" She laughed. A real warm, unguarded laugh that echoed slightly in the glass-walled room. He watched her, something unreadable in his eyes. When her laughter faded, she whispered, "You're not what I thought." "And what did you think?" he asked. "That you were cold, unreachable. The kind of man who doesn't even notice someone like me." He didn't blink. "I notice everything, Lydia." Her heart stuttered, too fast, too deep. But before she could say anything, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it and stood. "Meeting in 5. I'll send you the draft of our story. Names, dates, shared memories. Read it tonight. Christmas Eve is in 4 days." She nodded. "Okay." He walked to the door, then paused. "I wasn't going to go anywhere this year," he said without looking back. "Was just going to work." "Alone." She tilted her head. "But now I'm not." Then he left, and Lydia sat there, clutching her warm cup of coffee, feeling the exact moment her life shifted on its axis, not because of the pretending, but because somehow the most untouchable man she knew had just admitted he was lonelier than anyone suspected. Lydia stood frozen in her tiny kitchen, phone to her ear, wooden spoon dangling in the air like a forgotten thought. "No, Mom, he's not just a co-worker. He's someone I've been seeing." Quietly. Silence. Then from the other end of the line came the sound she dreaded, her mother's breathy the kind that traveled down generations like an heirloom. "Well, that's surprising," her mom said, voice tight with curiosity, "because Aunt May saw you alone at church last month." Lydia sighed, switching off the stove. "Because we weren't ready then." Another pause. "And this boyfriend of yours, what's his name again?" "Ethan." A beat. "Not Ethan Ashford?" She closed her eyes. Too late. Her mother gasped in that wonderfully theatrical way that mothers all over the world had mastered. "Lydia Marie Rowan, the CEO?" "Yes, Mother, that Ethan. A thud. probably her mom sitting down in her knitting chair. "You're bringing Ethan Ashford, the man from the Forbes cover, to Christmas Eve dinner as your date." Lydia rubbed her temples. "Please don't post it on Facebook." Too late. She could feel the glittering storm forming in the family group chat. She tried to distract her. "How's Dad's sugar level?" "Don't change the subject." "Tell Grandma I'm bringing dessert." "You're bringing a billionaire." Click. Well, that could have gone worse. That night she made dinner. Something simple. Mushroom risotto with thyme and parmesan, one of the few recipes she could do with her eyes closed. She needed normal, warmth, a soft place to land. Then a knock at the door. He'd texted before knocking, like he always did. She almost forgot she'd texted him earlier. "Would you mind coming over for 30 minutes? I just need to run through the details before I get grilled alive by my entire family." She opened the door to find Ethan standing there, not in a suit, but in a charcoal knit sweater, black coat open, deep blue scarf loosely wrapped, the one she'd never seen before. His eyes flicked to hers. "You smell like rosemary and existential dread." She huffed a laugh and stepped aside. "Come in." Her apartment was small, cozy, a little chaotic, books stacked 2 layers deep on every shelf, throw pillows that didn't match, a crocheted blanket tossed over the arm of the couch, made by her grandma before she passed, the same grandma who'd given her the snow globe. Ethan noticed it on her side table. He walked over, picked it up with surprising care. "She gave it to me when I turned 18, Lydia said softly, unprompted. "Said I'd understand its meaning when I felt stuck in life." He turned it upside down. The snow fell gently. "And do you?" he asked. She gave a crooked smile. "Every day." He set it down gently, then looked at the dining table. "You made dinner." "It's just risotto." He looked genuinely surprised. "You cook?" She handed him a plate. "I panic cook. It's a coping mechanism. You're the beneficiary." They sat opposite each other at her small round table. Candles flickered, mostly for the smell. Cinnamon and pine. He took a bite, paused. "This is excellent." Her eyes widened. "Wait, seriously?" He nodded. "Rich, balanced. The time isn't overdone. I've eaten at every 5-star in London, and I'd still ask for seconds." She blinked. "Did you just compliment me?" "I also said your apartment smells like dread, remember? Balance." She grinned, and for a moment they both forgot. Forgot it was pretend, forgot the rules. Just 2 people, eating real food, sharing a real moment. "I was worried," she admitted softly, eyes on her plate. "And that you'd regret this, that it would be awkward." He leaned back, sipping his water. "It's not awkward." She looked up. "And I don't regret it." The silence after that wasn't uncomfortable. It stretched like a soft sweater, warm, worn in, safe. She took another bite, heart fluttering, then her phone buzzed. She reached for it, and her stomach dropped. From Abby, her younger sister. Attached, a screenshot of a post. Lydia Rowan bringing the Ethan Ashford to her family's Christmas? This can't be real. I mean, we love a festive plot twist. "You CEO crush, June Ashford affair. Yes, holiday hot tea." Her voice was a whisper. "Oh no." Ethan raised a brow. "What is it?" She turned the screen so he could see. He read it once, then again. And something flickered behind his eyes. Not anger, not shock, but something close to preparation. He stood. "I'll handle it." She blinked. "Wait, what does that mean? You're not going to sue someone for gossip?" "Are you?" "No." He grabbed his coat. "I'm going to make it real." She stood too, pulse climbing. "Ethan." He paused at her door, meeting her eyes fully. "If this story's out there now, I won't let it humiliate you. Either we stay quiet, or we step into it completely." She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. "I'll call you tomorrow." "And Lydia," he hesitated just a beat. "I meant it. I don't regret this." And then he left, closing the door gently behind him. leaving Lydia staring after him again, but this time with her heart racing faster than ever. Because he hadn't just played along tonight, he'd meant every word. Yo solo. Lydia didn't sleep. She spent most of the night staring at the ceiling while the city pulsed softly outside her window. Shadows from passing cars danced across her walls, and the snow globe beside her bed glimmered every time her phone lit up with a new notification. The post had gone viral, not world-ending viral. But enough. A few hundred shares, some wide-eyed comments, and worst of all, a tag from her cousin Bella. Girl, explain now. Jackers CEO crush. She groaned into her pillow. This was not the plan. This was never the plan. She had wanted one quiet night, a little dignity, a seat at the table without being the girl who'd been left. Again. But now, she was trending, not by name, but by implication, by proximity to him. And he said he'd handle it, whatever that meant. At 8:03 the next morning, a knock sounded on her apartment door. He'd texted before knocking, like he always did. Not her phone, not a text, a knock. She rushed to open it, heart in her throat. Ethan stood there, scarf pulled loose, hair dusted with snow. He held 2 paper cups of coffee. She blinked. You remembered mine again. I told you, I notice things. He handed her the warm cup, then walked past her into the apartment like he'd done it a dozen times. He hadn't. But it didn't feel strange. He was already shedding his coat, pulling out his phone, reading something. I just left the PR office, he said. They drafted a statement. Her voice was a little dry. A statement? Yes. To make it clear we're not hiding, no interviews, no details, just quiet confirmation. He looked up. But I won't say a word unless you agree. Lydia stared at him. This man, who didn't even chat in elevators, was about to go on the record for her. Why are you doing this? She asked quietly. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he walked over to her bookshelf and picked up the snow globe again. Turned it over, watched the snow fall. You said this was about feeling stuck. She nodded slowly. I've felt that way for a long time, he admitted. Even with all of this, the success, the titles, I've been frozen. He set it down carefully. And then you walked into my office with cinnamon on your collar and eyes like you'd rather disappear than ask for help. She flushed. And suddenly, I didn't want to be frozen anymore. The room was quiet, the kind of quiet that wasn't empty, but full, charged. Lydia stepped forward, her fingers tightening around her cup. I never asked for you to fix anything. I'm not trying to fix you, he said, softer now. I'm standing beside you. That's different. And just like that, her throat went tight. She'd spent so long holding herself up, through broken engagements, sideways glances, family pity. She didn't know what to do with someone who simply stood beside her. What does the statement say? She asked, voice a whisper. He handed her the phone. It was short, clean, professional. Mr. Ethan Ashford confirms he is currently in a relationship and respectfully asks for privacy regarding his personal life. No further comments will be made at this time. Her eyes skimmed it again. In a relationship, she read aloud. That's definitive. He nodded. If we're doing this, it needs to look real. Her pulse jumped. And you're okay with people thinking I'm your... I want them to, he said gently. The room tilted, not wildly, just enough to make her breath catch. This wasn't about saving face anymore. Not for him, maybe not even for her. I don't want to embarrass you, she murmured. You couldn't, he said. You couldn't if you tried. By noon, the story had changed shape. The gossip threads slowed. The hashtag softened. No more Ashford affair. Now it was. Power couple alert. Ethan Ashford confirms relationship just before Christmas. Who is the mystery woman? Ashford taken off the market. Internet collectively gasps. Her phone buzzed every few minutes, but none of the messages made her panic anymore, until one did, from Abby. You might want to call Grandma. She just told Pastor Jim you're getting married. Lydia choked on her tea. That night she met Ethan at the office. It was quiet after hours, the kind of stillness that made the floor feel like a cathedral. He was waiting in his corner office, tie loosened, jacket folded on a chair. She stepped in, still catching her breath. Pastor Jim thinks we're engaged, she said, breathless. Ethan raised an eyebrow. Do we need a ring too? Don't joke, she said. But she was already laughing. He leaned back, smiled slightly. Come here, he said. She crossed the room, not really thinking, just moving. And then he reached out, gently brushing a snowflake off her hair. His hand lingered. They were too close, not close enough. Her voice broke the moment. Why did you really say yes to this? His reply was so quiet, she barely caught it. Because I wanted a reason to stay in your life. The silence that followed was different this time, heavy, real. And just when she opened her mouth to answer, his phone buzzed. He looked down. His jaw tightened. Of course. What? He held it up. A photo of them from last night. Through her window, the one facing the street. Someone had clearly taken the photo. Dinner table, candles, risotto, him laughing. And a caption underneath. Looks real to me. Lydia's heart dropped. Is it bad? No, he said. But his tone darkened. It's just started. She stepped closer. We can still back out. He looked at her. No, Lydia. His voice held more weight now. I don't want to. Lydia hadn't expected to wake up to the sound of someone knocking. Again. It was Saturday morning, barely 8 a.m. Her brain was still fogged from dreams and holiday chaos and the surreal knowledge that she now existed in the same tabloid airspace as actresses and actual royals. She wrapped herself in a thick cardigan, shuffled to the door of her apartment and opened it. To Ethan. Holding a brown paper bag and coffee, she blinked. Are we in a breakfast phase now? He smirked. I figured since we're convincing the world we're inseparable, I should at least bring bagels. She stepped aside, smiling. If you're going to fake date me, Ashford, you're setting the bar dangerously high. I'm aware. He passed her a steaming cup. Hazelnut, cinnamon sprinkle, no sugar. She looked up. Seriously? How do you remember that? I remember what matters. His voice was soft, warm. She looked away. They sat at her little table again, same chairs, different light. Morning sunlight spilled through the window, catching the golden flecks in her hair and making Ethan look almost relaxed. She bit into a toasted sesame bagel. I assume you didn't come here just to feed me? He wiped a crumb from his thumb. I have a car waiting downstairs. Thought we could go shopping. She frowned. Shopping? For Christmas Eve. She tilted her head. You don't think my sapphire dress is good enough? No. It's perfect, she blinked, but I thought we could pick something together. A gift. For your parents. Oh, she hesitated. You don't have to do that, it's just pretend, remember? He met her gaze. I know it started that way, he said, but your family's opening their home to me. I want to show respect. Something in her chest shifted. He wasn't playing anymore, not even a little, and it scared her just a bit how much that meant. They walked through a quiet boutique downtown later that morning, the kind with wooden floors, pine garlands in the window, and a silver bell that chimed softly when they entered. The air smelled like cedar and vanilla. Ethan moved with quiet precision, studying each item like it was a stock he might invest in. Lydia watched him while pretending not to. The way his hand brushed the edge of a scarf. The way he paused by a delicate glass ornament, shaped like a house. He turned to her. What about this? He asked, holding it up. Reminds me of your snow globe. She smiled, surprised. You remembered that too? His answer was immediate. I remember you. The ornament went into the bag, gift-wrapped, no tag. She didn't ask who it was really for. Back at her apartment, they shared the last 2 bagels. Cold now. but somehow still comforting. "I don't know what they're going to think," Lydia murmured, chewing slowly. Ethan glanced up. "Your parents?" She nodded. "I mean, they'll be polite, but they'll have questions and expectations, especially after the gossip." "They can ask," he said simply. "I'll answer." She looked at him. "And if they ask why a man like you would be with someone like me?" He paused, then leaned forward. "Then I'll tell them the truth," he said. "That I admire you, that I trust you, that I've never felt more seen." Her breath caught. That wasn't in the fake dating script, and he knew it. She looked down at her hands. "You don't have to keep protecting me, Ethan. I can handle my family. I can handle gossip. I've handled worse." "I know," he said, voice low, "but you shouldn't have to." That night she curled on the couch with a blanket and a book, but couldn't focus. The snow globe sat beside her, glowing under the light of her little table lamp. She picked it up, gave it one soft shake. Snow swirled around the tiny silver house, frozen, still, beautiful but untouched. That used to be her. But now something was stirring, warming, and it scared her, how much she wanted it to keep going. The knocking of her phone pulled her out of it. New message. "Jason, hey, just letting you know I'm already at your parents' house. Brought Brielle early to help decorate. See you soon." Lydia's stomach flipped. She stared at the screen. Jason, her ex-fiancé, was already at her parents' house with his new girlfriend 2 days early. She gripped the phone tighter. Like it could anchor her. He knew exactly what he was doing. He was trying to make a scene before she even arrived. Trying to beat her to the story. Her fingers moved on instinct. To Ethan, change of plans. We need to go tonight. He's already there. His reply was almost instant. "I'll be there in 20. "Don't worry. We'll walk in together." She stared at that last line. "We'll walk in together." And for the first time in a long time, she believed it. The car ride to her parents' house was quiet, but not the kind of silence that suffocates. It was the kind that wrapped itself gently around them, like a blanket tucked beneath old memories. Outside, the snow had started again. Slow, soft flakes dusted the windshield. Lydia kept her hands folded in her lap. She didn't speak much. Neither did Ethan. But he kept glancing at her, not with pressure, not with pity, just presence. He reached across the console without a word and took her hand. His palm was warm, his fingers strong. Lydia didn't let go. They pulled up in front of the old brick house at the edge of town just past 8 p.m. The porch glowed with soft golden lights, and the smell of cinnamon and roasted ham floated into the air the moment she stepped out of the car, her childhood home. It should have felt safe. But as she stood at the door, hearing laughter from inside, his laughter, the knot in her stomach tightened. "Ready?" Ethan asked. She looked up. He was standing so close, shoulders back, eyes steady, not playing, not pretending. She gave a small nod. "Let's go give them something to talk about." He smiled, not his press smile, not the one people expected, but something quieter, something real. Her mother opened the door, gasped, then pulled Lydia into a hug so tight her feet left the ground. "You look beautiful," she whispered, eyes flicking toward Ethan like she couldn't believe her daughter had conjured him out of a catalog. Lydia laughed nervously. "Hi, Mom." Then her father appeared, blinking like he'd seen a ghost. "So, this is Ethan Ashford." Ethan stepped forward and offered his hand. "Thank you for having me, Mr. Rowan, and thank you for raising someone remarkable." Lydia's mother let out a little gasp. Her father smiled. "Well, come in before the neighbors start taking pictures." The house was warm, crowded, and full of clinking glasses and little judgmental glances. Lydia's aunts had taken over the kitchen. Her cousins were in the den, playing some holiday guessing game. The tree glowed in the corner, and on its lowest branch sat a small ornament, a delicate glass house with silver-tipped pine trees. The ornament Ethan had picked. She hadn't wrapped it. Her mother must have found the bag and added it herself. She felt her chest squeeze. The first hour passed in a blur of introductions, 2 sweet cider and tight smiles. Ethan didn't flinch once. He remembered names, asked questions, laughed at Uncle Henry's recycled jokes. Every time Lydia looked across the room, he was already watching her. And then Jason appeared, wearing a smug sweater and a grin that hadn't changed since college. At his side, Brielle, tall, glammed up, gorgeous, holding a tray of Christmas cookies like she belonged in a lifestyle ad. "Lydia," Jason called. Voice just loud enough to draw attention. "Didn't know you were bringing someone." She stepped forward. "Jason, Brielle, this is Ethan." Jason's smirk twitched. "That Ethan? As in, on the news, Ethan?" Ethan extended his hand coolly. "The very one." Jason looked him up and down, then gave Lydia a slow smile. "Guess you finally figured out how to trade up." The room went uncomfortably still. Lydia's jaw tightened, but before she could speak, Ethan's hand brushed her back. "She didn't trade up," he said. "She just stopped settling." The silence cracked. A few awkward coughs, a faint oof from her younger cousin in the corner. Jason's smile stiffened. "I'll get us all a drink," he said, turning toward the kitchen. Brielle followed, clutching her tray like a shield. Lydia exhaled. "I'm sorry." "Don't be," Ethan said. "He's exactly who you said he was." She looked at him, grateful. Then her sister Abby sidled up, eyes wide. "I love him," she whispered. "You win Christmas." Lydia smiled faintly. "I wasn't trying to." "Well, you did. And Grandma thinks he looks like that man from the Hallmark Channel. You know, the one who always runs a bakery and wears the same coat?" They both laughed, quiet, relieved, but the relief didn't last. Not when Jason walked back in holding a wine glass and clinking it with a spoon. "Can I have everyone's attention?" he called. "Oh no," Lydia thought. "Don't you dare." "I just want to make a quick toast," Jason said, his arm casually around Brielle's waist. "To love and new beginnings and getting it right the second time." Several heads turned toward Lydia. Jason smiled directly at her. "And to the ones who never gave up, even after a few failed engagements." The room tensed. Lydia's stomach turned. But before she could say a word, Ethan stepped forward, took a glass, and said calmly, "To the ones who learn from heartbreak, stand taller after loss, and never settle for less than they deserve." He turned slightly, met Lydia's eyes. "And to the woman who taught me all of that, cheers." Clink. Every glass in the room followed. Jason's smirk died where it stood. Lydia felt heat rise to her cheeks, not from shame this time, but from something like pride and hope. But even as people started moving again, laughing, drinking, clapping, her heart was pounding, because if this was pretend, it was getting too close. And if it wasn't, she wasn't sure how to protect herself anymore. The party began to soften after dessert. The scent of ginger and nutmeg lingered in the air. Most of the younger cousins had retreated to the den with hot cocoa and holiday movies. The older guests dozed gently in overstuffed armchairs, while the kitchen hummed with the low rhythm of clinking dishes and gentle gossip. And Lydia? She sat on the floor beside the tree, heels off, legs tucked under her, as she watched the silver lights shimmer against the branches. Her sapphire dress, the one her mother said made her look like a winter princess, pooled softly around her. A delicate ornament sparkled just above her shoulder. The tiny glass house, the one Ethan had picked. "I didn't know it would mean that much," came his voice behind her. She turned, startled, but softened as she saw him kneel beside her, 2 glasses of warm mulled wine in hand. "You remembered where we hung it," she said. "I watched you smile when you saw it." He passed her a glass, his fingers brushing hers. "That's what I remember." She exhaled slowly, letting the moment settle. The house had quieted mostly. No one was paying attention to them now. The tension from Jason's stunt had faded. The fake dinner war had ended, and she'd won, even if she hadn't meant to. But what was growing between them now? This wasn't victory. It was something far more dangerous, far more real. I was terrified, she admitted, walking in tonight, knowing he was here. That they were here. I didn't know if I'd fall apart or fake my way through it. Ethan didn't respond immediately. Instead, he reached into the inner pocket of his coat and pulled something out. Lydia blinked. Her snow globe. Her actual snow globe. The one from her desk. I asked your assistant if I could borrow it, he said gently, setting it between them on the rug. I needed something to remind me why we were doing this. Her throat tightened. You brought this to a family dinner? He nodded. Because it mattered to you, and that meant it had to matter to me. The soft glow of the Christmas lights reflected off the glass dome. Tiny flecks of glitter snow swirling around the little silver house inside. Just like her thoughts. I used to shake it when I was nervous, she whispered, before meetings, before interviews. It made me feel like I had a little world I could control. Ethan watched her closely. And what about now? She gave a small, sad smile. Now I know I can't control anything. He reached out, turned the globe slowly in his hands. The snow settled, gentle and still. That's not true, he said quietly. You controlled tonight. Lydia let out a breathless laugh. I did not. You walked in with your head high. You didn't flinch. You faced the man who broke your heart and didn't shrink. She looked down. Because I had you next to me. Ethan tilted his head. No, he said. You had you. I was just lucky enough to witness it. The room fell silent again, except for the low hum of the heater and the faint crackle of the fire in the living room. She met his eyes, and everything in her chest hurt, in the best and worst way. She hadn't meant to fall for him, hadn't meant for the pretend to become real, but here she was, and he was still looking at her like she mattered. She set her wine glass down. I don't know how to do this, she whispered. He didn't ask what she meant. He knew. I'm not asking for anything, he said gently. Not tonight, not tomorrow. She blinked back the sting behind her eyes. I just need you to know something, he added. I didn't offer to help because I wanted good PR, or because I felt sorry for you, or because it was easy. He leaned closer. I did it because the moment you told me your ex was coming, something in me couldn't stand the idea of you facing him alone. She swallowed hard. Ethan. He shook his head once. I know. You didn't ask for this. She hesitated, then reached for the snow globe again, ran her thumb across the base. I used to think love had to be loud, she said. Big gestures, flowers, fireworks. And now? She looked up at him. Now, I think love might be a man bringing you coffee without asking, watching your face more than his phone, carrying a snow globe in his coat pocket because you said it mattered. The silence after that was deep and holy. He reached out, took her hand, and for a long moment neither of them said anything, until finally he broke the stillness. I told my family I was skipping Christmas this year, he said softly. Didn't want the questions, the pity, the why are you still alone speeches. She squeezed his hand gently. I know how that feels. But I didn't skip it, he continued, because of you. Lydia felt her heart stop and start in the same breath. Lydia, he said, voice low, I know this started as pretend, but I need to ask. He turned fully, now kneeling in front of her, her hand still in his. Would it be okay if we stopped pretending? Her lips parted, but no words came, just her heart, pounding, answering, and still unsure. Lydia didn't speak right away, not because she didn't have words, but because too many of them were stacked inside her chest, jumbled, colliding, stuck. Ethan was still kneeling there, still holding her hand, still looking at her like she wasn't just someone worth pretending to love, but someone worth choosing. And that was the problem. She wanted to say yes. She wanted to fall forward into that version of her life, the one where this man in front of her really meant everything he was saying. But wanting and trusting weren't the same thing. And trust? Trust had cost her everything once already. She pulled her hand back, slowly, gently. "I don't know how to trust this," she said, barely above a whisper. Ethan's expression didn't fall. He didn't flinch, didn't pull away. He just sat back quietly, giving her space. "I don't expect you to," he said. She stood up, wrapping her arms around herself. "I thought I knew what love looked like. Jason made it easy to believe the version where I wasn't enough. Not quite interesting enough, not ambitious enough, not social enough." Ethan stood too, careful to stay a step behind her. "You are enough," he said, steady as stone. She turned to face him. "Do you believe in timing?" she asked. "Like maybe if this was a different year, a different chapter, I wouldn't be so afraid." "I believe," he said slowly, "that timing gives us excuses, and fear gives us armor, and sometimes love asks us to put both down." Her throat tightened again. It wasn't fair. Why did the most guarded man she knew have to be the one who saw her the clearest? He reached into his coat pocket again, held out the snow globe. "I think you should keep this close," he said. "Tonight, for yourself." She took it, almost trembling. His eyes stayed on hers. No pressure, no decision. "I just needed you to know how I feel. And that whatever happens next, I don't regret any of it." She didn't answer. Couldn't. But she nodded once. And he understood. It was past midnight when Lydia stepped into the upstairs hallway. The house was quiet finally. Candles blown out. Guests asleep or gone. Brielle's high heels had stopped clicking hours ago, and Jason's forced laughter had drifted off with the sound of car doors and snow crunching under tires. Lydia couldn't sleep. Not after that moment. Not with the snow globe still in her hands like a secret she didn't know what to do with. She stepped into the hallway and walked quietly toward the guest room where Ethan was staying, just across from the one she always used during holidays. The door was cracked open. He wasn't inside. She turned and found him sitting on the floor at the end of the hall, back against the wall, legs stretched out, head tipped up toward the ceiling like he was trying to memorize it. He looked up when he saw her. Didn't smile, but something in his eyes relaxed. "I couldn't sleep either," he said softly. She sat beside him. The old wooden floor creaked gently beneath her. For a long while they didn't say anything. Then she whispered, "You scared me tonight." "I know." "You meant it." "I did." Silence again, the kind that made room for things unspoken. "You were the only person who made me feel strong tonight," she said. "Even when I didn't believe it." "You are strong," he said, his voice low. "You just don't know it yet." She leaned her head back against the wall. "I've spent so long trying to prove I'm okay," she murmured, "to my family, my friends, myself, and now that you're here, it feels like I don't have to." "You don't?" And there it was again. That steady, terrifying warmth in his voice. The one that told her this wasn't a game for him, that maybe, just maybe, she didn't have to keep waiting for someone to leave. She turned her head, met his eyes. "What if I mess this up?" she asked. "What if I fall for you and it goes wrong?" He didn't hesitate. "Then we'll figure it out." Her eyes brimmed, and then a noise. A sharp creak near the stairs. They both turned. A shadow moved, too fast to be natural, just for a second, like someone had been standing there, watching. Jason had gone upstairs to get his coat and heard enough. She stood slowly, suddenly alert. "Did you see?" But Ethan was already on his feet. He moved to the stairs, quiet, careful. Nothing, just cold air from the open hallway window at the landing. He shut it gently, locked it. But Lydia's heart was still racing. "I have a bad feeling," she murmured. Ethan looked down the stairs one more time. Then back at her. "I won't let anyone hurt you." Downstairs in the dim-lit kitchen, Jason stood alone. phone in hand, a quiet, bitter smirk on his face. He wasn't wrong. He had heard something. Enough. More than enough. And if Lydia thought she could win Christmas, he'd just found the perfect way to ruin it. Overheard. The morning after Christmas Eve was always the quietest part of the holiday. That strange in-between where half the house was asleep and the other half shuffled around in slippers, waiting for coffee and cinnamon rolls. Lydia had woken early, hoping to find a moment alone, but when she padded into the kitchen, barefoot and wrapped in one of her dad's oversized sweaters, Ethan was already there. He stood at the stove making scrambled eggs like he'd done it 100 times. The sleeves of his navy pullover were pushed up to his elbows, and for once he looked settled, at home. Lydia leaned on the doorframe and watched him for a moment before saying softly, "You're doing it wrong." He didn't even look up. "You like them soft, slow-cooked, and ruined with too much chive." She raised an eyebrow. "I don't ruin them. You drown them in herbs. I season them." He finally looked at her then, a slow smile pulling at the corners of his mouth. "I made both," he said, gesturing to 2 pans. "Yours is ruined. Mine's respectable." She laughed, really laughed. The kind of laugh that came from below the surface, the kind that hadn't had air in a long time. He turned off the burners, plated the eggs, and slid a warm mug across the counter toward her. Hazelnut. Cinnamon, no sugar. "Do you do this for every woman you fake date?" she asked, sitting at the breakfast bar. "No," he said without hesitation. "I've never done this before." That changed the air between them. Again. He sat beside her. "I thought it should be here," he said quietly. "Between us." She stared at the tiny house, swirling in gentle white. "Feels like everything's between us," she said. His eyes met hers. "I'm ready when you are." And just like that, it was her move. She set down her coffee, looked at him long and hard. "I think I want to—" The door to the kitchen opened. Lydia flinched. Jason, fully dressed, perfectly timed, smiling like a man who knew exactly what he was about to do. "Sorry to interrupt," he said. "Well, not really." Ethan stood. The shift in him was subtle but immediate. Protective, ready. Jason held up his phone and tilted it toward Lydia. "You might want to see this." She hesitated. "What is it?" "It's about your boyfriend," Jason said. "I just thought you should know before you go making things public." "You know, it's real." Lydia frowned, stepping forward. "Jason, what are you—" "3 years ago," he cut in, Ethan's company cut a deal with a property developer to bulldoze 3 local bookstores in upstate New York. One of them was a historic landmark. The man who ran it? My uncle. Lydia blinked. Ethan didn't move. Jason continued scrolling through his phone. "I've got articles, internal memos. The press buried it fast, but it happened. And guess who signed off on it?" He held up the screen. Ethan Ashford. Ethan's jaw clenched, but his voice was calm. "I did sign it." Lydia's stomach twisted. Jason's eyes lit up. "See? You thought he was some knight in shining armor, but he's no different than the rest of us." "That deal saved 75 jobs," Ethan said. "We relocated 2 of the shops, paid out double in reparations. The 3rd building was condemned. It wasn't even legally safe." Jason scoffed. "You always have an answer, don't you?" Ethan stepped closer. "I made decisions to protect an entire company, decisions I didn't always like, but I didn't hide them, and I didn't break my word to the people I loved." Jason's smile faltered for just a moment, and Lydia caught it. "What do you want?" she asked. "Do you—" Eyes narrowing. "Why are you doing this?" He shrugged. "I just thought you should know who you're falling for." The room went still. Lydia's heart pounded. Ethan didn't defend himself further. He just looked at her, eyes steady, waiting. And in that moment, she saw the difference. Jason came back to undo her. Ethan had only ever stood beside her. She turned slowly. "Jason," she said, voice like ice, "when you left me 2 years ago, you said I wasn't ambitious enough for your future, that I'd hold you back. He blinked. I didn't. You did. You said it right in this kitchen over leftover pie. And you know what I did the next morning? He stayed silent. I got up. I went to work. I started over, alone. She stepped closer, voice rising. And this man, the one you're trying to ruin, is the only person who's made me feel like I didn't have to be ashamed of that. Jason's mouth opened, then closed. Ethan touched her arm, not to stop her, just to remind her he was still there. Jason shook his head. Whatever. Don't come crying to me when he does the same thing. I won't, Lydia said firm, because he won't. And then she took Ethan's hand, held it, in front of everyone, even herself. Later that afternoon, the house had grown quiet in the way only a home does after all the guests are gone. Leftovers sat sealed and cooling on the stove. Chairs were stacked. The scent of cinnamon rolls still lingered in the air like a whisper of something sweet and finished. Lydia stood in the upstairs hallway with bare feet on the wooden floor, one hand resting lightly on the railing. The snow globe sat in her other hand, not for comfort now, but for thought. She turned it once, slowly. The snow inside swirled, like it always did. But something felt different. She no longer needed it to steady her. She just wanted to remember. She heard his voice before she saw him. Soft laughter, a thank you to her mother, as he helped bring the extra folding chairs down to the basement. It struck her then how quietly he moved through spaces. No need for attention, no effort to impress. And yet, he filled the room. She came down the stairs just as he finished folding a tartan blanket on the couch. He turned, saw her, and smiled. Not the practiced, press-polished smile she'd seen in headlines and office hallways. This one was just for her. Your mom said you disappeared, he said gently. I needed a minute. She also said I've officially been adopted into the family, and that your Aunt May is convinced I used to be on a Hallmark Christmas special. Lydia grinned. She says that about any man who wears a scarf. Ethan leaned in. Should I stop? Absolutely not, they both laughed. The kind of easy, shoulder-loosening laughter that comes after the storm has passed. The kind that means maybe, just maybe, they were going to be okay. Want to go for a walk? She asked. There's a trail down the street. It's quiet. Always helps me think. He nodded once. Lead the way. The air outside was fresh and sharp, the kind of cold that bit at your cheeks and made your breath come out in clouds. Snow flurries were falling again, gentle and silent, clinging to branches and rooftops in soft, white layers. Lydia tugged her coat closer around her as they walked side by side down the winding neighborhood path. The trees looked like they'd been dipped in sugar. Everything was still. I used to come here after Jason left, she said after a while. I'd walk until I couldn't feel my feet, just so I wouldn't feel the rest of me either. Ethan didn't interrupt, just listened, present, patient. I thought if I just kept moving, eventually I'd outrun the feeling that something was wrong with me, that I wasn't enough. His voice came low and steady. You were never the problem. I know that now, she whispered, but for a long time I let that lie live inside me. She stopped walking, turned to face him. I was afraid you were just a new version of the same old story. He looked at her. Unwavering. I understand. I didn't trust you. I know. She took a breath. It came out shaky, but sure. But I do now. His eyes softened, like winter clouds before the sun breaks through. Lydia? She stepped closer, her boots crunching in the snow. I'm still scared, she admitted, still figuring out how to believe in something good. You don't have to have it all figured out. She searched his face. Saw the quiet strength there, the kindness, the truth. I think I want to try, she whispered, if you still want me. He didn't answer with words. Instead, he reached for her, slow, sure, and pulled her gently into his arms, and kissed her. It wasn't dramatic or sweeping, no swelling music, no cinematic pause. It was soft, certain, real, the kiss of a man who wasn't in a hurry because he wasn't going anywhere. When they pulled apart, Lydia's heart felt like it was still leaning into his. "I choose you," she said, barely above a breath. "Not just tonight, not just to prove a point or win a moment. I choose you." He smiled then, the kind that only happens once your walls have fallen for good. "And I'll keep choosing you," he said, "every day, whether the world is watching or not." They walked back in silence, fingers entwined, like two pages finally sewn into the same book. Inside her room, the snow globe sat on the nightstand where she'd left it. She crossed the room slowly, picked it up, looked at it one last time, then placed it gently on the shelf, not hidden, not clutched, just placed, with peace. "I used to hold it like a shield," she said softly, "like maybe if I stared into it long enough, I could escape my own life." Ethan came up behind her, resting his hand on her back. "And now," she smiled, "now it's just a reminder that I got through it, that I'm not stuck anymore." He nodded, his hand warm through the wool of her sweater. Then he reached into the pocket of his coat. "I wanted to give you something," he said. He held out a small velvet box, deep blue, simple. Unlabeled. Lydia blinked. Her heart hiccuped. "This isn't—" "Not a ring," he said quickly. "I swear." She laughed nervously. "Okay, just checking." She opened the box. Inside was a single silver key. Her breath caught. "Ethan." "My grandmother had a cabin," he explained, "about an hour outside the city. It's quiet, tucked in the woods. I haven't been back since she passed." Lydia looked up at him, stunned. "I'm not asking you to move in," he added, gentle now, "or make some big decision. I just wanted you to have it, a place, a choice, if you ever need quiet or peace, or just a place that's yours." She stared at the key in her palm. It was small, simple, but somehow it held more weight than anything she'd been given in years. "You're giving me part of your life," she whispered. "I'm giving you the door," he said. "You get to decide when to open it." Her fingers closed around the key, and for the first time in a very long time, she didn't feel lost. She felt found. The road to the cabin looked like something out of a postcard. Tall pine trees dusted in snow, the sky pale and still, and that rare, reverent kind of silence that made you breathe slower. Lydia stood at the porch steps with the silver key cold in her hand, her breath rising in soft white clouds. 2 weeks had passed since Christmas, since she'd taken the key Ethan had given her, and every day since, a part of her had been asking, "What do I do with this?" Now she knew. Beside her, Ethan stood quietly, not rushing her, not filling the air with promises or pressure, just waiting, steady. Always steady. She looked at him, at the man who had once been untouchable, unreadable, and now stood next to her like someone who wasn't trying to take up space in her life, but make space for it. She turned the key in the lock. The door opened with a soft creak. Inside it smelled faintly of pine, old books, and cedar smoke, the kind of scent that lives in wood for generations. It was simple, warm, timeless. There was a stone fireplace, a bookshelf filled with weathered hardcovers, and above the mantel, a small framed photo of Ethan's grandmother, eyes kind, arms wrapped around a young, serious-eyed boy. Lydia stepped inside. Ethan followed her, watching her quietly. "This is where she felt safe," he said softly. She always called it her soul's breathing room. Lydia ran her hand along the top of the couch. "It feels like it remembers things," he nodded. She said, "Homes remember, homes. Especially the ones we love, right?" They didn't say much for a while. They just explored, opening drawers, checking light switches, watching the snow outside gather gently on the windowsills. At some point, Lydia walked to the fireplace and reached into her coat pocket. She pulled out the snow globe. Ethan looked up. "I thought you'd left it behind," he said. "I did," she said gently. "But I brought it today for a reason." She turned it once. The flakes inside swirled, soft and slow, around the little silver house. "For a long time," she said, "this made me feel protected, like I could keep my heart frozen and safe inside it. But now," she looked up at him, "now I don't need it to protect me. I just want it to remember who I used to be and how far I've come." She set it gently on the mantel, right next to the photo of Ethan's grandmother. Ethan came to stand beside her. "She would have loved you," Lydia smiled. "Then I think she built this place for both of us." He exhaled slowly, then reached into the inner pocket of his coat and pulled out something small, a snow globe, the same one. But this time, there was something inside it. Lydia blinked, confused, as he turned it slowly in his hands. There, nestled in the snowy base of the tiny silver village, was a simple gold ring. Her breath caught. "You—" He looked down at the globe. "She gave me this when I was 16, he said quietly. "Told me to give it to the woman who reminded me that home isn't a place, it's a person." He turned the globe back to face her. "I didn't think I'd ever give it to anyone, until you walked into my life with cinnamon on your coat and your heart still healing. And somehow, you saw through me like no one else ever did." She stared at him, her eyes already filling. "Lydia," he said softly, "I know you've been hurt. I know trust takes time. I'm not asking you to say yes to a perfect life. I'm asking you to say yes to building one, with me, from scratch." He slowly lowered himself onto one knee, snowflakes catching on his coat sleeve, his voice steady and real. "No pretending, no almosts, just a promise. That I will love you on ordinary days, hard days, quiet days, and every day after. Will you marry me?" Lydia covered her mouth with her hand, the snow globe between them catching the light from the window like a star. She couldn't speak at first, not because she was unsure, but because she was sure. Finally, she knelt with him. "Yes," she whispered, "yes, not because it's safe, not because it's expected, but because it's you." He took the ring from inside the globe. It fit perfectly on her hand. They sat there on the floor of the cabin, forehead to forehead with snow falling outside and a fire waiting to be lit. And for the first time in a long time, Lydia didn't feel like she was starting over. She felt like she was starting right. 1 month later, the city moved fast again. Work had returned, headlines had shifted, and Valentine's Day had snuck into the stores. But for Lydia Rowan, everything felt different. She still woke early, still made her cinnamon hazelnut coffee, still wore her emerald sweater when she needed courage. But now there was something else on her hand, and someone waiting at her door every evening holding flowers or takeout, or just a smile. They didn't announce their engagement with fireworks, but the people who mattered knew. Her mom cried. Her dad hugged Ethan a little too tightly. Aunt May asked if it would be a Christmas wedding. And the snow globe? It stayed at the cabin, where their story truly began, not just as a memory, but as a promise. Love doesn't always arrive with grand entrances. Sometimes it comes quietly, through trust, courage, and second chances. Not perfect, but real, and chosen. The end. Would you say yes to a love like this? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your heart. If this story touched you, click like, subscribe, and rate it from 0 to 10 below. Your support keeps these stories going, and if you're still here, see you in the next story.